Welcome back to your Hofstra Vibes Family Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Helmendaller. I'm a first-year master's student in the Hofstra Forensic Linguistics program, and I'm also the grad assistant in the Office of Intercultural Engagement and Inclusion. Today, we're being joined by Kevin Dexter. He is Hofstra's Assistant Director of Athletics for Broadcast Productions, and he has a wealth of experience in broadcasting that started right here as an undergrad at Hofstra. Today, we're going to talk about that journey. How are you today, Kevin?
I'm doing well, Jenny. Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk today. Long Island sports fans may recognize you from reporting or broadcasting for News 12 or the Long Island Nets, but Hofstra fans will definitely recognize you for your work for Hofstra Athletics. So how did you get your start here at Hofstra?
A long time ago now. It makes me feel very old thinking about it. But so I graduated from Hofstra in 2013. So I came here to school in 2009, and I grew up in Levittown here on Long Island, so down the block. And even before that, I had come to a bunch of Hofstra basketball games, been following the team. And, I feel like any kid who grows up playing sports on Long Island has kind of played something at Hofstra, right? Mm-hmm. So, playing basketball at Hofstra, playing baseball, that kind of stuff as a kid. So it was always obviously close to home for me. And when I realized in my college journey that I wanted to stay close to home, Hofstra has a great sports, media program now. And, back then it wasn't sports media, but just journalism, TV, what I wanted to do. It was a pretty easy decision. Hey, I can commute to school 10 minutes down the block and have this great program. So like I said, Hofstra was an easy choice for me. And, spent 4 great years here, got very involved, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Really have kind of never left. I've had a lot of different jobs here in different capacities, but it's always been Hofstra. Hofstra's home, right, for the last, really like 15 years of my life. So it is, it's good to be back now full time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Hofstra has a pretty big community of students who are not from this area, myself included. So what kind of reputation does Hofstra have for locals growing up in the Long Island area?
It's different in that regard, depending on who you talk to. I think some people, because it's down the block, from where I grew up, right? Oh, it's down the block. Oh, Hofstra here. And people don't realize, especially if you're just driving by on Hempstead Turnpike, right, how beautiful the campus is when you're walking around, what it has to offer, right? A lot of people I know and I went to school with, they just came here for class and then they left and went home and they worked a job wherever, right? And they didn't really get involved on campus. And I think, I was really lucky to obviously have the passion for broadcasting and the radio station here where we're recording this, at WRHU, but to get involved early on and to make friends. And, to me, it didn't really matter that I was driving home instead of walking to my dorm because I was still here till 11 o'clock at night, midnight, hanging out with my friends, doing that kind of stuff. So I think, for a lot of people that are local that come to Hofstra, maybe they miss out on things. It doesn't have to be media and broadcasting. It could be anything on this campus. But, if you are local and you're listening to this, get involved, find something because there's so much this campus has to offer. And, the benefit of being obviously close to home if you're from here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said you came knowing already that you were going to do sports journalism, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome that you already know.
Yeah, that was my, my life kind of dream from when I was a little kid. If you look at my 5th grade yearbook, it says, Kevin D, sports broadcaster. It's always what I wanted to do. I guess, and in ways for me, I guess I didn't really even always know what I wanted to do. It was just that I wanted to do this, as I would tell people. And thankfully, throughout my journey, I've had different experiences, different things, and it's, again, led me back here to Hofstra. And, the job I have now, I think, is a great fit, and it's been good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like I went into my undergrad experience being like, oh, well, I hope I can do something I enjoy, and I guess I'll figure out what that is.
Yeah, right. No, it was definitely a lot of that. Like, hey, I just want to be in this industry. And obviously, the radio station being great here, I gravitated towards that at the start and, then got involved in TV. And I think it's been, like I said, I've had a lot of different experiences, which is, been really valuable.
And so specifically, your experience in the School of Comm, how did it kind of prepare you for life after undergrad? Like, did you come out of that program knowing more specifically what you wanted to do?
I don't know if I'm unique in this setting. I think, a lot of people probably fall into this. You get, very caught up, I think, in what you are doing here that it becomes such a focus that I wasn't always as focused on what I'm going to do after. It was more of doing well. Like I was the sports director here at the radio station for 2 years, and I took that job very seriously. And then you had classes, and we were doing Islander broadcasts, and we were doing Hofstra basketball broadcasts and Hofstra lacrosse, and it was pretty much every day like it was a job. It was a job. So I think in that regard, I was just always so focused on doing well and just kind of having the hope, so to speak, that, hey, if I continue to do a good job on this, you get good enough at broadcasting, you meet the right people, that'll help you along the way. And that definitely happened. I mean, every position that I've had in my career ties back to Hofstra in some way, shape, or form. And obviously now full circle with being here full time. It all, I think, started with me having the work ethic and developing a reputation so that people around here were willing to help me out, when I needed it. And that definitely happened.
Yeah, and it's amazing that Hofstra, based on its location and just its networking, that it's able to ingrain students so deeply into like really popular, really great gigs on a local setting. Like I know a lot of times when I talk to friends in my undergrad, which again wasn't here, we'd always talk about how like it is what you make of it. Like you could just float by, but you could also really set yourself up.
For sure. I mean, I'm an adjunct professor here in the School of Communication as well. I was telling my students this morning, we had our first class the day we're taping this. You can be as involved as you want, right? For a student that comes in and, I'm just a journalism major, or, and I don't really do much. And I understand everybody's got different circumstances. Some people have to work in order to make ends meet and stuff, and not everybody has the same availability and opportunity to get as involved in the extracurriculars. But, there's so many great opportunities here, and you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't get involved and you don't, because you're going to be sitting after 3-4 years and say, hey, you can't you're not just going to get that dream job by just going to class. You have to get involved in this other stuff, especially in the media industry, if you're going to want to earn that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And so after you graduated, you floated around to a couple different really awesome opportunities and wound up back at Hofstra. How did those other non-Hofstra positions differ from your experience here?
My resume is definitely hard to decipher because I've had a lot of different jobs. At a lot of points, it was just kind of, again, trying to do whatever I could to, obviously make enough money to stay here, but really, broadcasting is an industry where a lot of times if you want to be on the air, you have to leave New York because New York is the number one market. It's so competitive. And I was lucky enough and thankfully good enough that I was able to get on the air pretty quickly here in New York. So I was, not full-time anywhere, though. It was, hey, part-time here. I was working a lot of radio, sports update jobs. So I did weekend mornings at 1010 Wins for a long time, which the schedule was brutal, but it was, number one news radio station in the country. And I was 23, I think, when they put me on the air. So, that was a no-brainer, right? And working at CBS Sports Radio nationally, turned that into WFAN, the number one, sports talk station here in New York, doing updates for them for a long time. That on the radio side. And then I actually interned at News 12 as a student, and I was a junior. And I remember after my last day of interning, the producer called me and was like, would you want to, he thought I was graduating. And he was like, would you want to stick around and work for us freelance? And I, of course, said yes, got hired. But again, he didn't realize that I wasn't a senior. I was a junior. So there were times, and I can admit this on the podcast, there were times that I was like, hey, they called me to work and I would skip class. John's here laughing because he knows this is true. I wouldn't go to class because I had to work, or it would be like, hey, can we switch up? Let's say I was scheduled for a broadcast for WRHU, but News 12 needed me, right? Mm-hmm. And I worked for them, as a producer for a couple of years. And then once I graduated, it was always in my mind to say, hey, I'm going to show the sports director like a tape, to get on the air. And he approached me and said, hey, would you want to, do a tape? And that was, so I graduated in May, and that was maybe like December or January. So 6 or so months after graduation. And I did a few tapes, and before my 23rd birthday, I was on the air. Wow. So again, but none of that was full time. So it was just kind of, it's a lot of juggling. Yeah, right. Juggling all of that. And then a couple of years after, the Long Island Nets, who I know you mentioned before, the Brooklyn Nets G League team, they started a new franchise across the street at the Coliseum. Because of the relationship with the Islanders, they come to Hofstra. John was able to help, put me in touch with them. And I was, there first, and still have been doing, play-by-play for them ever since the start, in the NBA G League. So, and then obviously tying back to Hofstra, when I was in school here, I know this is probably hard to follow if you're listening to this. You're like, how many jobs did this guy have? But through Ed Ingalls, the late great Ed Ingalls, who was our professional in residence here at Hofstra, he ran a summer camp every year for high school students here at Hofstra, and I started working with him over the summers, and I really enjoyed working with students and helping out and mentoring. That every summer of my life since then, I've been working that camp and eventually took it over to be the director of that camp. And that got me back into teaching here and teaching a class. So it all connects in some way, shape, or form back to Hofstra. And it was kind of all, like I said, for many years, just kind of putting all of these pieces together. I'd have my busier seasons, my not as busy seasons, and then, into which I'm sure we'll talk about, but when the opportunity that I have now came up, it was perfect kind of mesh of all that, getting a chance to work with students, being here at Hofstra, and being in around TV, broadcasting, media. So, it really kind of worked out well. Hopefully I didn't bore you with that entire...
No, what an amazing career. I mean, in my head, I'm just kind of going to assume now any kind of broadcasting or local sports thing, I'm just going to assume you were there
I've probably done it at some way, shape, or form, yeah.
So that being said, right now you're assistant director for athletics for broadcast productions. What does your day-to-day kind of look like now?
It's really cool, this new project that Hofstra has undertaken. So over the last 18 to 24 months in that time span, the president, our director of athletics, Rick Cole Jr., the dean of the School of Communication here, Dean Luke, they've all worked together on this brand new effort to both improve broadcast for Hofstra Athletics, but also create new student opportunity here in the Herbert School of Communication. And now we have what's called Hofstra Sports Media, and we are the broadcast outlet, our television / streaming broadcast outlet for all of Hofstra Athletics. So what we do is we produce out of a brand new control room here in the School of Comm. We produce everyone, feasibly possible. Obviously, there are some days in which we have 2 or 3 games going on, which we can't do all of them at once. But every broadcast, feasibly possible of Hofstra Athletics on this campus now originates out of this control room. It is a full television style broadcast produced, obviously I oversee it, and produced by a mix of freelancers who are 90% Hofstra alums and then Hofstra students. And the reason why we have that set up is it gives students an opportunity to work on these shows and learn and train, but also they get mentorship as well. It's not just, hey, you're going to be this position and you have no idea what you're doing, you've never done it before, and we're going to throw you into the fire. No, we're going to have somebody who has invested in your future, who is a Hofstra alum, who wants to give back to the school, who is a professional in the industry, who's going to come here. And if you are on the replay machine, for example, you're going to get a chance to watch, and then they're going to be over your shoulder while you get a chance to get your hands on it. Same thing for any of the positions that we have. So I think it's worked out really well in that regard so far. I came on full-time in August. We did our first, and they've been working on this ramping it up for the last couple of years as things were getting built here. We did our first show out of there. We did a field hockey game in October, and we've been full steam ahead with every basketball game at home this year. Obviously, there's been some bumps along the way, but it's been really good. We have produced a lot of quality stuff, getting a lot of students involved. It's great to have the next semester starting and students coming back to get more involved, but we've had students as camera operators, replay operators, technical directors, graphics operators, audio, so on and so forth in the TV world. So it's been great. So basically my day-to-day now is, overseeing this entire, unit. Again, when we have games, it's games. When we don't have games, I'm the administrator, scheduling, figuring out what games we are doing, what times we're doing those games, all of the production elements, our commercials, our sponsorships, our graphics that we use, all that kind of stuff. So I can get a lot deeper in the weeds, but that is, that's my focus. And then again, I still, I'm an adjunct professor here, so I teach TV sports reporting and producing, so it's perfect for my background. And then I also still will do some games, for the Long Island Nets as well. It's across the street, and keeps me involved in the on-air aspect of it as well, which is great. So it's busy. We obviously sports are at night and on the weekends, so that doesn't change, right? I'm here a lot, but it's good to have this opportunity and to start up what we're doing here, and hopefully as we get into year 2, 3, 4, 5 of this, it's going to be even better opportunity for students.
Mm-hmm. I mean, already it sounds amazing. You get to give back directly to the people who were in your position in your
absolutely.
exact niche,
Yeah.
which is really, really cool. Is there any particular game or event that you've covered either here at Hofstra or with your work with other local areas that is most memorable for you?
The cool thing about sports is you don't know what's going to happen ever, right? Like you could go into it and expect, hey, on paper, Hofstra's so much better than the other team. We're going to win by 30 and they could lose by 30, right? It doesn't really matter. And I think it's just cool to have, that you don't know what's going to happen, right? It's not, there's no script. I think on campus, we weren't producing the games yet, but a couple of years ago, we hosted the conference softball championship. And I was the play-by-play announcer for it. And we won on a walk-off in the championship game, bases loaded walk-off. Like that was just cool to be there for, when you win a conference championship at home, right? It was just, it was
special.
cool,
Yeah.
And I was on the CAA broadcast. I couldn't be too biased, but obviously, I was pulling for Hofstra there. So it was, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I mean, I think, just in relation to this campus, going back to my days as a student, and we talked about it a little bit, but having the opportunity to work with the Islanders, I am a big Islander fan. And that was, part of what I wanted to do, growing up was cover the Islanders, right? Growing up, going to games and getting a chance to do that here and getting a chance to be on the air with Chris King covering playoff games as a college student, right? That was never something that I could have imagined as a 15-year-old. So that still, people, if I tell people that now, they still kind of don't believe it. Like, what do you mean you were a college student doing this stuff? So it was, that's cool. It still, still sticks with me to this day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, John's passing me notes over here, but John just reminded me that when we were doing those Islander broadcasts back in the day, so like I said, I was here when we first got the contract, and WRHU's been doing the Islanders for, John, I know you're not on the air, correct me, it's 14 years now? 15 years? 15 years, yeah. That WRHU's had a relationship with the Islanders. So I was here when that first started. I was a sophomore. Yeah, I was a sophomore. I think I might have engineered behind the board like the first or second game, and then I became a reporter. And then, like I said, I got on the air to do color with Chris for 2 years. Playoff games that year was 2013. They made the playoffs, and we put a game on ESPN Radio and on WFAN, and I was a color analyst for that. When I got my job at Odyssey, New York, it wasn't Odyssey back then, but like they remembered me from that. So it all ties back here to Hofstra, which is it's crazy, but it's true. Yeah.
And I'm sure high school students aren't necessarily imagining that for themselves just yet at that stage in their lives. But for those who are considering Hofstra as a home for them for the next 4 years, do you have any advice for them if they are interested in getting in that multimedia space?
Yeah, I mean, I think wherever you go to school, obviously we hope it's here, right? Especially if you're listening to this, but wherever you go to school, just to get involved. I talked to somebody who is a student at another school looking to do the same kind of thing through a church relationship. Knows my mother-in-law, gave me a call a couple weeks ago, and I was giving him the same advice. Find who is the person. Do you want to get involved in TV? Who is the person on campus? Does your school broadcast the games? And then he reached back out to me and said, hey, I'm training to be a camera person. Seek out the opportunities, because wherever you go to school, you can't just say, okay, I'm a major in this, and I'm going to go sit in my class, and they're going to teach me everything I need to know possibly in my class. You have to get out. You have to join the radio station, the TV station, if you have a sports media program like we do. Even if you're not interested in media and you want to do something else, you just have to get involved. You can't just show up to class. You have to get involved. You have to show what you can do, and especially in this industry. I mean, you want to get good grades, but nobody's going to say, oh, you're going to be on the air because you have a 4.0 GPA over a 3.5. It doesn't work like that in broadcasting. Who's better? Are you good enough? Do you have the skill level? Do you have the work ethic? So obviously my advice is just come in, work hard, come to Hofstra, and we have great opportunities here to help build your career.
Yeah, and there's absolutely no harm in trying. And even if it doesn't work out, then you get that experience for next time and whatever next opportunity comes to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story. I'm sure a lot of people are going to get a lot of benefit of listening to that and seeing what kinds of things they're going to get involved in when they come here.
I hope so. My information's on the Hofstra website. If you have any questions, always feel free to send me an email. Hopefully this program continues to build, and I'm excited to be in charge of it.
And more information about Hofstra University is available at hofstra.edu. Thank you all so much for listening to your Hofstra Vibes family podcast, and we'll see you next time.